Now the other form is synthetic astaxanthin, and that has about 1/4 of the molecules in a bottle is the active form, is the correct form. But when you make these things synthetically, you get actually 4 optical isomers. Only one is the really active one. That's the one you should be taking. These others, we don't know about the biochemistry of those. It is allowed in salmon because they did a risk assessment many years ago, and it was deemed that if you feed this to the salmon, it certainly doesn't hurt the salmon. And then the human exposure is extremely low because there's a very low amount. But if your salmon has 4 milligrams of astaxanthin, or typically 3 milligrams, only 1 milligram of that will be the actual natural one. So I don't eat farm-raised salmon. Farm-raised salmon has other issues like omega-6 content is through the roof. Doesn't have a lot of omega-3s like ALA or DHA and EPA. And so I avoid that. I only eat natural, and you know, the restaurant I ate at last night, they even have EU certified organic salmon, which tastes really great. And then supplement with astaxanthin.
Okay.
There is something else I wanted to mention too about astaxanthin and carotenoids. If you look at the structure of astaxanthin, it's a very long molecule, the center of which is extremely fat soluble. That's why it goes into the membranes of your body and in the fatty tissue. And when you look at a salmon, you see that redness in a salmon. That color is really in the membranes and in the fat portion of the salmon associated with omega-3 DHA. Right? They're right next to each other. That actually keeps the DHA from oxidizing. DHA is an unsaturated fatty acid. If you just leave it exposed to oxygen, it goes rancid.
Just like any fish oil would.
Yeah, and in krill, the reason why krill is, one of the reasons why krill is so incredibly stable is it has astaxanthin in it, and that keeps it from oxidizing. If you take that astaxanthin out of krill, or you purposely destroy it in a krill, that krill oil will go rancid very quickly. Now, having said that...
But before if I can interrupt, you actually work in an environment where you're able to do these tests.
Yes.
So you can test fish oil, which doesn't have astaxanthin typically,
Yes.
and krill oil, which has it. And can you just comment on the length of time it takes to artificially induce oxidation through a system, which is called a ransomet, I believe.
Right, right.
So, because I think, you know, when I first heard that from you, it was very enlightening and sort of reinforced the understanding I had of the importance of astaxanthin.
Well, there's a standard test that's called a ransomet, and you know, lay people don't have to understand exactly how it works, but basically you take an oil, you heat it up to a certain temperature, say 90 degrees centigrade, which is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, a lot over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It's about 150 or so. I can't do the math in my head, but if you take a ransomet and then you take oxygen and you bubble it through the oil, which is a forced oxidative process, and you collect the gas, and by measuring the conductivity of that gas, you can determine if the oil has gone south, if it's gone bad, if it's gone rancid. Rancidity is, if oil didn't smell bad when it was rancid, you would know it was rancid. But humans have evolved to know that when something smells kind of rancid, then you don't eat it, okay? So we take all these oils. We take corn oil, chia oil, krill oil, fish oil, and run it through a battery of tests. On the same machine, we can do 16 different oils at one time. And then you can measure on a curve how fast it goes rancid. So let's just start with chia oil. Chia oil will go, you know, at 90 degrees, will go 35 hours before it goes rancid. On a forced stress test, if you will, like they do with the banks, but this is with oil. Stress test. Fish oil, less than an hour goes rancid. Even the best fish oils go rancid very quickly. Now, a lot of people add a lot of extra vitamin E to fish oil to try to pass that test, but adding that much vitamin E, if you eat a lot of vitamin E that way through your fish oil, you're getting too much vitamin E and it's a pro-oxidant in your body, not unless you're taking astaxanthin. Krill oil, I have never seen anything like it. As long as that krill oil has astaxanthin in it, as long as it's still red, it has ransomate performance that even surpasses things like olive oil. The other one I mean, to me, is totally astounding. And at first, I thought our ransomate machine was broken. But the fact is that the only other oil that I know is extremely stable, and it's a monounsaturated oil, is amaranth oil. It's very expensive, and it does not as well as krill oil. As a chemist, you look at krill oil structure with the DHA, EPA, phospholipid, and I would say, hey, this stuff is going to be like fish oil. It's not going to hang around. Well, it does hang around. It's extremely stable. But make sure you get a good quality krill oil that has the astaxanthin intact, and it needs to have at least 0.2 milligrams of astaxanthin, 0.2 milligrams per gram of oil as a minimum in order to get this protective effect. If it has less than that, it's not stable.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation. Where does astaxanthin actually deposited when one consumes it? Is it in the membranes? Is it in a specific organ? Does it concentrate more in one tissue more than another?
Yeah, as I explained before, astaxanthin has that fat-soluble part of it that's on the inside, and the outsides, however, are somewhat water-soluble. So what happens with astaxanthin is that it dissolves in the fatty tissue, your membranes, cell walls. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, so it does go into your brain, acts as an antioxidant there. The jury is still out whether that will contribute to the long-range reduction in dementia and stuff like that. That has to still be tested, but it is possible, okay, from when we look at the chemistry and the mechanisms. It also goes into the eye, but the important thing is that it intercalates. What is that scientific term? It folds into the membrane, and since the water-soluble ends, both ends are water-soluble, it folds. If the membrane is a structure like this, it folds in perpendicular to that membrane with the water-soluble. This part of the membrane is water. This is oil, with the head of the astaxanthin pointing towards the water on both ends. And then DHA and EPA kind of do the same thing, so they all align in those membranes. And the way membranes age is that those fatty acids, DHA and EPA, that are very prevalent in tissue. For instance, 40% of your dry mass of your brain is DHA. 40% of your eye's dry mass is DHA. That DHA oxidizes, guess what happens?
Doesn't work.
It turns to leather. It turns to a non-flexible, non-functioning membrane that can't transport enough oxygen, that can't transport enough nutrients and that sort of thing. So the astaxanthin intercalating, it's a word that I use, but you know what it means. It folds in. It's near those DHA and EPAs. That means that it's going to keep them from oxidizing because the astaxanthin becomes a sacrificial being oxidized, being reduced. And we know we can eat EPA and DHA, and it does go into your body. It's a fairly slow, inefficient process. There's about a 45-day turnover of DHA in the body. Astaxanthin has a T1 half. That means half of it is destroyed in about 16 hours. Okay, so that's something that you have to replenish. Now you don't have to take, if you forget to take your astaxanthin every day, don't worry about it. You can take it 1 day or 2 days later. You're going to be fine. I generally recommend discipline and, in taking your stuff on time and working it that way. But it's real important to recognize that if something's an antioxidant and it doesn't align properly in a membrane, it's not going to do a lot of good because it's not going to be where the radicals are, where the single oxygen is.
Now, one of the closing comments I'd like you to address would be the safety issue. We've had a number of people express concern about some potential complications such as breast enlargement or anything else that it might be an issue. So if you can certainly address that issue and maybe how it came to be, how this concern came to be, and the fact that what side effects we have. Because as far as I understand, the only side effect documented is really a slightly pinkish skin, which is really beneficial because when you look at the studies, people we almost universally identify people with that tint. They don't really know that it's there, appreciate it, but they subconsciously believe that person looks healthier. So
Yeah.
it's a cosmetic benefit.
Yeah, the pinkishness is a sign of well-being and good health, and definitely is a positive, and it is somewhat protective. Okay, now I've heard these things too. There's been blogs about breast enlargement associated with astaxanthin, and folks, this is simply impossible and not true. Okay, it's cut and dry. Now let me explain why that is. First of all, the molecules themselves, the carotenoids, have no steroidal function. They also do not inhibit steroid formation. And of course, we know that testosterone and estrogen are very important for sexuality and for hair growth and breast size, etc. However, carotenoids do not affect that at all. And there's no steroidal activity. It does not enter in any mechanism pathway for the synthesis of steroids, and these reports are just completely wrong and not based on...
How did they ever come to be? I mean, what generated or spread it? Because if you just look at the chemistry, you wouldn't even begin to believe that's an issue, but someone somewhere came up with this concept.
Well, I think one of the first places it showed up is on Dr. Weil's website, and I think it was through a blogger thing. But remember, a lot of these websites, and I don't want to just zero in on his website, are no longer directly connected with the founders. Okay, a lot of these websites tend to play it safe. The other website that has strange stuff about astaxanthin is the Lance Armstrong website, which also has some information on about astaxanthin, which we don't know where they got the research. I mean, there's a very strange...
They don't cite any studies. They just came up with these...
and somebody's not reading this stuff, and scientists are not reading it, and certain people that are involved in natural healing and stuff like that are not really... and it is kind of a snowball effect. But some of these websites are really not up to date, and they haven't been policed. And I know that the Mercola website is very well documented and very well researched.
Yeah,
a big difference.
Yeah, we like to, or seek to document the claims that we're making with the science and the studies that have been published. So, I mean, that's really our standing operating approach. So, well, thank you for coming and sharing this information about the astaxanthin. I think it's a tremendously useful nutrient. It's one of the few ones that I take every day, and I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to do that, because I think it has so many more important components, especially in conjunction with a healthy diet. We're eating plenty of fresh, raw, organic vegetables, and balancing out the foods to get most of your nutrients that way. So thank you, because it's this supplement and the food, of course, can help you really and your family take control of your health.
Thank you very much.